Okay, welcome back to the SU Leadership Race Debates 2018. Our final debate of the evening is for VP Education. We've only got 2 candidates for this one and the order will remain pretty similar to the last one. We've got 2 questions. We're looking for questions from Facebook, so if you've got any, please do send them in and we'll get them asked to these guys. And we'll also give the candidates an opportunity to ask each other a couple of questions before their final thoughts. So, let's introduce the candidates. Candidate number 1, who are you? Why should people vote for you?
So I'm Edmund. I have incredible experience sitting on university committees. I've been able to effectively put forward my arguments on several points, including extenuating circumstances, the teaching excellence framework, as well as the rules of assessment, which puts me in very good stead on being able to continue that work should I be elected for VP Education.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Candidate number 2, who are you? Why should people vote for you?
My name is Rory. I am a master's student here at the University of Essex. I also did a bachelor's here, and I'm also a faculty convener. So that altogether, my long term here and the fact that I've worked for the SU sort of shows that I also know this university really well. I've also been able to sit in on big university meetings such as rules assessment, teaching excellence framework, all that sort of stuff. Of course, the difference between me and Edmund is I've been doing it for longer, 4 years, in fact. And because of that fact, and because I've had longer to develop these relationships, I think I'd be the best candidate for VP Education.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Rory. So the first question that we've got this evening is about people missing lectures. So the union know that people miss lectures for some reasons. Some people have reasons, some people don't. At the moment, Listen Again isn't available for everybody. So what is in place for students who legitimately miss lectures, and do you feel that's good enough at the moment? Ed, you want to take that first?
I think all students with valid reasons for missing lectures, I think primarily they should be able to have easy access to Listen Again. I think that students are paying for their education, that they have paid for the lectures that they are sitting in. Therefore, they should have access to them afterwards. If they have not attended it, then they should still be able to have access to it afterwards because they've paid for that education. I think if it's not possible to have access to Listen Again on it, that students with exceptional cases should be able to speak to their relevant lecturers to be able to provide some sort of appropriate education in lieu of a lecture. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Rory, same question to you. What should we do for people who legitimately miss lectures, and is what we currently do enough?
What we currently have at the moment is Moodle and, of course, Listen Again. Now, Moodle itself is quite good, it's useful for resources, but of course, it sort of depends on what the resources are as to the quality of the education you'll get from that. And Moodle on its own isn't very good, especially if your PowerPoints are not very good. Listen Again itself, for the most part, we have 90% coverage, but there are some cases where there are opt-outs. I'd like to extend Listen Again to cover much more of the university if possible. Obviously, there are going to be some places where confidentiality won't allow that to happen. There is actually work going on in the Access to Learning group, I think it's the Access to Learning Task and Finish group, which has sort of been rumbling along this year, and if it continues next year, I'd like to impress on that the need to extend Listen Again to encompass the entire university. They've sort of been on about it for a while, but I want to get them to do it even more next year.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So the second question is about grades, which is obviously something that we all care about. So is students viewing a breakdown of their grades something that is of concern to students? If so, how should we address it and how would you take it forward? Ed?
I think it's important for students to know where they stand in their current degree. I think the arguments against this normally revolve around if students are being presented with the information, then will they just try to scrape through, and then does that negatively impact them? But I think no, students deserve this information. It's currently not clear enough, and students have spent, I know personally, I've spent hours trying to work out exactly where I were to see exactly what I needed in my exam to get the grade that I wanted, and that's just unnecessary effort, quite frankly. And I think students need this information clearly available to them. It's just a simple calculator to punch in, this is how much things are worth in my modules, and this is what I got in them, and then this is where I stand overall on my current degree. I think it's common sense. Thank you.
Fantastic. Same question, Rory. Is what we're currently doing with regards to showing students their grades enough? How would you improve it?
Well, we're not doing anything to show students their grades. quite frankly. The stuff that exists is sort of third party, and it involves knowledge of a lot of maths and a lot of how the university works in terms of degree algorithms. I think that we should allow students to calculate their own grades using a rather straightforward method, if such a method can be devised. The number of times I've had students ask me, what do I need to get a first, or what do I need to get a 2-1? This isn't students asking, what do I need just to scrape the bare minimum? These are students who actually want to get something good out of their degrees. And again, part of this problem we have with the complexity of figuring out grades goes back to the work we're doing on rules of assessment. We're trying to simplify them. When they're simplified, it means that we can then go on and create this new grade calculator, which will be so much simpler than the system we currently have. If we just implement it right here, right now, it will be even more complicated because the rules of assessment underlying it are just complicated. So if we could do that alongside working on the rules of assessment, that would be good, because the degree algorithm coming out of the rules of assessment would feed into simplifying the whole how do you calculate the grades thing. So yes, it is something we need to do. I say that we should do it in parallel with the work on the rules of assessment.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to the section of the evening where candidates can ask each other questions. Ed, have you got anything you'd like to ask Rory?
I think I would like to ask Rory, having looked at the materials that you've published so far, what do you think is most important to students that do not study law at this university?
Yeah, apologies for being a bit law-centric, but that's my background. I'd say what's important to students who don't study law is there is some stuff in my manifesto that is sort of trends across all departments. The 3 key things I said in my manifesto were good degrees, employability, and tuition fees. They affect every single student here. Indeed, as we heard from some of our VP International candidates, they transcend every single community we have. So not just lawyers are affected by higher tuition fees. You can have economists, you can have art historians, you can have anyone affected by tuition fees. Employability, well, if you don't get a good job after your degree, then something's gone a bit wrong somewhere. And getting a good degree is sort of something that you come here to do. It's sort of a prerequisite to get on and get a good job. If you get out of university without having a good degree, then you're not able to get into the good job that you want. And again, that affects everyone. It affects people in business school, affects people in law, affects people in lifts, affects people down at Loughton, where if you don't have a good degree, then the thing you have been primed for, which is acting, you can't really do that, because they'll look at you and say, you're not a good actor, no thanks, we're not interested, you're not going to have a livelihood.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Rory. So is there anything that you would like to ask Ed going backwards? It's fine if not. I've got another question.
No,
if you need to.
sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. So Ed, we'll come back to you. What, in your opinion, is the biggest area that students feel the SU could do with more support in terms of the education that they're currently receiving?
I know we are touching on a very common theme for tonight, but I think it is massively important that we keep upping the importance of mental health within the SU. I know it's come up for services, for international, but the mental health barriers to education are phenomenal. Obviously anyone with even long-term or short-term mental health illnesses has their education impacted whilst they're studying at the university. Whether it's getting up and just getting into a lecture, or whether it's having the energy to actually submit the work that you need to do. I think the SU can do much more in supporting students with those needs and pressuring the university to also do more to support those students in their academic field.
Fantastic. Rory, same question. What, in your opinion, is the biggest area that students feel the SU could do more to support them in terms of their education?
I would say that the biggest thing we could do to support students, and it's something that we've sort of been doing on and off for a while, is just making sure that students are heard. I mean, I can give you a very real example of what I'm working on now. Down at East 15, which is our campus in Loughton, students are finding out that their head of school is soon to step down, and for a while it was almost like we're not being involved here. We're quite a tight-knit community. We want to know who this new person is going to be. Is there a way for us to get involved? Now, through a lot of work I've done, the answer is now yes, but that sort of points back to the whole thing: students aren't being heard, and it's through the SU that the student voice can mostly be portrayed. It's what sort of what I do for a day. It's what I do for a day-to-day living. It's getting students the best degree and job. So,
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So we now come to the part of the evening where our candidates can just wrap up, offer their final thoughts, and say to you guys why they think they're the best option for the job. Ed, why are you the best?
I think Rory actually identified the most important reason that we should be electing our VP Education, and that's on experience. And he has outlined that he's had a long period of experience, but being in the current position, nothing quite meets the ability that I have, the in-depth knowledge that I've had in so many of these committees and meetings, and the background that's going into them. That without this knowledge, the things that I'm trying to achieve now may end up being lost next year, as there's just not the power to go through with it in future. But I think a vote for me is a vote to continue the things that I'm currently passionate about, the things that I've already been voted in to do. I think you should take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ed. Rory, final thoughts? Why should people vote for you?
well, the rather weird thing about this whole election is that Edmund and I actually do a lot of work together. Like, this week we have Education Committee together. Next week we have Rules of Assessment together. If you vote for me, you're not going to lose anything. In fact, you're going to get a heck of a lot of continuity. But the difference is, I've sort of have more experience. I have built-in knowledge. I've managed to earn the praise of very senior university academics over the space of many years of work. I want to keep that praise, and in fact, the academics who really have praised me have actually moved on into higher posts. So you get even higher praise from higher places. And if you want someone who sort of knows this university really well, knows policy really well, has been described as a goddamn machine, vote for me.
Well, luckily for you guys, just before we wrap up, we've just had a Facebook question come in, so we've got time, so I might as well ask it. So, Edmund, what do you think, how would you plan on working with the uni services, so like Moodle and the library, etc., to make sure that all students have equal access to materials and equal opportunities?
Well, I think obviously it's very important that students do have that equal access to those materials. I've already been working with the library on digitising a lot of their textbooks, with the express that why is it fair that a student that can afford textbooks has the advantage of that when a student that cannot afford it does not have the access they need just to complete the module that they're on. And that's the kind of thing that I've already been working about, reducing those equality barriers in terms of education. And that's just the financial ones. In terms of Moodle, I think again there's massive differences between different modules, that there really needs to be more consistency in the approach from the university, and to teach these, or to treat these digital mediums with more respect, because students are using these. We know that students are using these, therefore students need them to be better, and they need them to be equal across their learning experience. Otherwise, some people are just having better university experiences than others, and that isn't fair.
Fantastic. Rory, how do you plan on working with the uni services, such as the Moodle or the library, to make sure that all students have equal access to materials?
I would, again, continue with digitalisation of textbooks, which is something that's already begun. Really should continue, because, like, I'm speaking as someone who relies on certain accessibility to just do my degree. I'm disabled in more way than one, and for disabled students in particular, accessing an ordinary textbook that's 500 pages long might not be the best way of accessing their course. In fact, instead they might prefer to do it through digital textbooks, or if we could do it through some other services such as Daisy, or other more accessible means of accessing textbooks. As for Moodle, I would encourage lecturers to be more willing to put stuff up on Moodle. I mean, again, students use Moodle not just to look at stuff and say, oh, that's pretty. They do actually go up there and download stuff, and in most cases, and particularly in my case, just to use myself as an example, we download it and follow material along, such as PowerPoints, as we're going along through the lecture. So lecturer's got a PowerPoint on the screen, we'll follow it along on our laptops. Resources, putting up on Moodle, again, that just goes back to my original point. I would encourage lecturers to put more stuff up on Moodle to allow students to access it. If it's possible, and if it's just like 2 or 3 pages out of a book, or maybe a link to an article, put that on Moodle so students don't have to go trawling through the library's catalogues, and believe me, that's hard thing to do on a good day. Essentially, just make stuff more accessible. If you can, if lecturers can do, like with articles and things, use Moodle as one repository so that there's one easy one-stop shop to go and find your stuff, rather than saying go and find these 5 books in the library and the rest of the material you'll need is on Moodle. That's sort of making students go all over the place when actually you could just put every article, like the articles they need, and maybe if there are chapters of the books on Moodle, which has happened in the past.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Rory. So that's it for the education debate. Thank you to these 2 candidates here, as well as all the other candidates tonight. We'll be back on tomorrow night, same time, on Facebook, with VP Welfare and Community, VP Activities, and of course the big one, the President. So yeah, join us tomorrow. Keep sending in your questions. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.